What if the real threat to American security wasn't foreign enemies, but the people sworn to protect it?
Late this afternoon, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to preserve records of a text message chat where senior national security officials discussed sensitive details for a U.S. military strike against the Houthis in Yemen.
You think you know America, the land of freedom, the world's protector, the good guys. Behind closed doors, the U.S. government plays a different game. One of secrets, one of power, one where the rules don't apply. High-ranking officials, including the Secretary of Defense and the Vice President, recklessly used the messaging app Signal to casually discuss classified war plans against the Houthis in Yemen, like teenagers chatting in a group chat. The worst part? This isn't an isolated incident. Not even close. The American government has an extensive and alarming history of leaking its own dirty secrets. Sometimes it's sheer negligence, classified documents forgotten in unsecured inboxes, or sensitive files languishing on the laptop of a disgraced congressman. Other times, it's outright betrayal. Occasionally, leaks come from whistleblowers, brave souls who risk everything to expose corruption, war crimes, and illegal surveillance. Yet, instead of being praised, these whistleblowers are hunted and criminalized.
Hand-wringing, suspicion, and uncertainty at the Pentagon.
We simply don't know at this point.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says he has no idea who leaked dozens of classified and top-secret documents online, but the loss is staggering.
Who says the man who leaked troves of classified documents did work on a military base and was part of this online group popular with gamers, a group united by their love of guns, military gear, and God.
Every leak fractures public trust, ends careers, and tragically can cost lives. Yet every single time it happens, government officials feign shock, spin narratives, and carry on until the cycle repeats. So, in honor, or more appropriately, in dishonor of Signalgate, let's count down the 5 biggest security leaks in modern US history. Prepare yourself, because what you're about to discover might challenge everything you've assumed about America, its leaders, and perhaps even your own allegiance. Number 5. Hillary Clinton's emails.
Lock them all up.
Oh, Hillary Clinton's emails.
You had an unusual email arrangement, which meant the State Department could not produce your emails to us. You made exclusive use of personal email and a personal server. And when you left the State Department, you kept the public record to yourself for almost 2 years.
The scandal that just will not die. People called it overblown and a nothing burger, but was it? In 2014, Secretary of State Clinton was running a government business through a private, unprotected email server. She kept around 30,000 emails on a homemade setup, including classified and top-secret information. Why? Convenience. It seemed following basic security protocols was just too much of a hassle. But then came the big wiener. Anthony Weiner, that is. Yes, the guy who torpedoed his own career by repeatedly sexting underage girls. The FBI was investigating him when they seized his laptop. And what did they find on it? Thousands of Clinton's emails sitting right next to Weiner's digital disaster. Some of them were classified. How did they get there? Clinton's top aide and Weiner's wife, Huma Abedin, had forwarded them. The excuse? She needed to print them out. That is right. National security documents sent to a sex offender's laptop because printing was just easier that way. The timing could not have been worse for Clinton. On October 28, 2016, just days before the election, FBI Director James Comey announced the investigation was back on. The media exploded, and Clinton blamed it for her presidential loss. The entire debacle made one thing clear. The people at the highest levels of government treat classified information like a kid's field trip permission slip tossed to the side until someone remembers it needs to be taken care of. Number 4. Facebook Cambridge Analytica.
A Canadian man has blown the whistle on his own company for harvesting private data from 50 million Facebook users.
This list wouldn't be complete without us talking about one of the largest influences in a US presidential election. This next leak is a chilling example of how technology can be weaponized to control democracy and just how vulnerable we all are to political manipulation. The Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal was a full-scale psychological warfare on the American people disguised as social media marketing. Starting in 2014, millions of Facebook users' data was gathered by a UK political consulting firm, Cambridge Analytica. Here's how it worked. Alexander Kogan, a so-called researcher, created a Facebook quiz app called This Is Your Digital Life in order to secretly harvest personal data from users. But it didn't stop there. Unknowingly, the app also collected data from all the users' Facebook friends. This silent operation ended up collecting 87 million user profiles. And what did they do with it? They built precise voter profiles and pushed hyper-targeted political ads designed to exploit fears, reinforce biases, and nudge people toward a specific candidate or cause. This was not just spammy campaign ads. This was messaging intentionally tailored to politically sway each user based on their personality type. This data-driven propaganda machine played a role in both the 2016 US presidential election and Brexit. The firm provided data and targeted advertising services to the Trump campaign, including the creation and distribution of over 5,000 ad campaigns that generated approximately 1.5 billion impressions. In 2018, Christopher Wiley, a former Cambridge Analytica employee turned whistleblower, revealed the company's unethical use of Facebook data. Wiley detailed how Cambridge Analytica used unauthorized data from millions of Facebook profiles to build psychological profiles and target voters. The backlash was massive. Facebook got slapped with a record-breaking $5 billion fine from the FTC. Cambridge Analytica went bankrupt, but the damage was done. The scandal exposed how big tech and political operatives turned social media into a mass surveillance and voter control tool. The Cambridge Analytica scandal became a turning point in public awareness of digital privacy and political coercion, prompting stronger regulations around data protection worldwide. Number 3. WikiLeaks. Is it ever okay to gloss over the ugliness of war? In this story, some will say keeping military secrets is the price of patriotism, a necessary shield for national security. Others argue that knowing the truth is the right of every American. Chelsea Manning, an Army intelligence analyst, had access to a staggering amount of classified information. What she saw sickened her. The official story of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq did not match reality of what was really happening. In 2010, Chelsea Manning tore through the government's veil of secrecy, releasing nearly 750,000 classified military and diplomatic files to WikiLeaks, dragging hidden truths into the daylight for the world to see. And who ran WikiLeaks? Julian Assange. You know, the Australian publisher and activist with the lustrous silver mane, the guy the US government wanted silenced so badly in 2017 that Mike Pompeo, then Secretary of State, allegedly schemed to kidnap and assassinate him. Nothing screams land of the free like plotting a hit on a journalist exposing the truth. Another proud moment in America's rich history of spreading democracy, right? The US government called it one of the biggest betrayals in history. Others called it a long overdue dose of truth. Among the files was the infamous collateral murder video. It showed a 2007 Apache helicopter attack in Iraq where US forces gunned down civilians and journalists. The Pentagon spun it as an unfortunate accident. The video looked more like a video game killing spree.
Clear. Clear.
The leaks did not stop there. Over 250,000 diplomatic cables revealed how the US strong-armed allies manipulated foreign leaders and made deals in the shadows. Military reports exposed unreported civilian casualties and the abuse of detainees. The public got a front-row seat to the reality of modern warfare, and it was not pretty. The government and military leaders were furious. Their war crimes were exposed. Manning was hit with 20 charges, including violations of the Espionage Act. She was sentenced to 35 years in prison. In 2017, Obama commuted her sentence after she had served 7 years. But the debacle still rages. Was she a traitor, or did she just do what the press was too afraid to do? Would you have the guts to uncover the truth your government doesn't want the public to see? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Number 2, the Snowden files. Speaking of whistleblowers, WikiLeaks laid the groundwork for an even bigger government leak to come, one that exposed the NSA as perhaps one of the greatest threats to American privacy and global diplomatic relations, the Snowden files. Edward Snowden, a former NSA contractor, had access to a terrifying reality. The US government was running a full-scale global surveillance program on foreign leaders and on its own citizens on a scale that would make George Orwell sweat. In 2013, Snowden decided enough was enough. He leaked thousands of classified documents to journalists Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, blowing the lid off the most invasive spying operation in modern history. The NSA was not just spying on suspected terrorists, they were spying on everyone. Here's what we learned. The PRISM program allowed the NSA to pull private user data straight from tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Apple. They said it was to monitor for foreign threats. In reality, the NSA logged millions of Americans' phone calls, texts, and emails without users knowing. Even allies were not safe. The US government spied on foreign leaders in Germany, Mexico, France, Brazil, Japan, and Israel. The diplomatic and domestic fallout was huge. In a 2013 public hearing, James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, was confronted with the evidence, but instead of owning up, he sidestepped, dodged, and unwittingly spun his way around the truth.
So what I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently, perhaps, collect, but not wittingly.
After revealing the documents, Snowden fled the US to Russia, where Russia granted him temporary asylum in 2013 and later citizenship in 2022. Snowden remains wanted by the US government and faces charges under the Espionage Act.
News this evening is the identity of the man who sent the Obama administration into defend and explain mode this week. His name is Edward Snowden. He's an American former CIA employee and computer technician. Today he came out as the leaker of classified NSA documents that spell out a secret surveillance program.
So far, no help for U.S. authorities in trying to nab Edward Snowden, which is likely exactly why he's mapped out this route. Tonight, as the U.S. now warns other countries not to help him.
His leaks forced some reforms, like the USA Freedom Act, a law that replaced certain controversial surveillance practices and ended the NSA's bulk collection of Americans' telephone records. But, let's be honest, governments still spy on their people. They are watching. They always have been. The only difference is now we know. Number 1, the Pentagon Papers. What you're about to hear is beyond horrific. It's one of the most brutal, inhumane betrayals the US government has ever inflicted on its own soldiers and the Vietnamese people. And trust me, this one should never be forgotten. It started with Daniel Ellsberg, a military analyst with access to top-secret files, who saw something that made his stomach turn. He found a report that was secretly commissioned by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara in 1967. This was a highly classified US government study detailing American political and military involvement in Vietnam from 1945 to 1967. Ellsberg discovered that multiple administrations from Truman to Johnson had systematically misled the public and Congress about the extent of US involvement and the likelihood of success in Vietnam. The documents reveal the horrifying truth. The government knew the war was unwinnable, but kept sending troops anyway. Military victories were faked. The American people were sold a fantasy while soldiers were sent to die. One memo from 1965 even admitted that 70% of the US involvement was just to avoid embarrassment. Only 10% had anything to do with helping Vietnam. It was not just a war, it was a PR campaign with body bags. Ellsberg tried to get anti-war senators to release the files, yet they did nothing. So he went straight to the New York Times. The government panicked. Nixon tried to stop the publication, throwing around claims of national security like a hot potato. The Supreme Court did not buy it. They ruled in favor of the press, and the truth came out. Public trust in the government shattered. Anti-war protests exploded. The war had been a fraud, and now everyone knew it. 2 years later, the US pulled out of Vietnam. The Pentagon Papers changed everything. Daniel Ellsberg became an iconic whistleblower, an advocate for transparency, and secured the freedom of the press. You might be asking yourself, why wasn't Signalgate on this list? As all fresh scandals go, it will take time for all the information to be exposed. But let's be clear, it's not just some simple mistake. No matter how hard the current administration tries to downplay it, here's what we know so far. It was a masterclass in government stupidity. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, in a move that should go down in history as the dumbest mistake ever, accidentally added Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, to a Signal group chat. What was the chat about? Oh, just a top-secret military operation against the Houthis in Yemen. No big deal. Just the kind of thing you casually text about like a fantasy football draft. This was not a minor slip-up. The chat contained real-time operational details, including launch times for airstrikes, drone missions, and Tomahawk missile strikes. It even named a CIA operative. But wait, it gets worse. These top US officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, were congratulating themselves with emojis and casual banter. Nothing screams serious national security planning like dropping fire emojis after an airstrike. The fallout was immediate and is still ongoing. The Atlantic published the entire transcript, exposing just how reckless his administration was with classified information. Congress put on its usual dog and pony show, holding hearings that went absolutely nowhere. Democrats called for investigations, Republicans yawned, and the White House? Oh, they decided it was just a tiny little oopsie.
Well, we have never denied that this was a mistake, and the National Security Advisor took responsibility for that. And we have said we are making changes. We are looking into the matter to ensure it can never happen again.
You know, the kind of honest mistake that, if the roles were reversed, would have Republicans foaming at the mouth, screaming into cameras, and demanding heads on pikes. Yes, that ever-familiar, never-ending buffet of political hypocrisy. The real takeaway: these people can't handle a group chat, but we trust them with national security. We keep voting for them and handing them more power, but instead of transparency, our governing officials lie, cheat, and think they're untouchable. So, does Signalgate make the list of top government leaks? Drop your thoughts below. The biggest threats to US national security are not foreign spies nor shadowy terrorist groups. Every one of these scandals, Snowden, WikiLeaks, Cambridge Analytica, and now Signalgate, proves that the real danger comes from the people in charge. Is this the America we want? Look, everyone makes mistakes, right? That's just being human. But wouldn't it be downright shocking if, just once, an administration came out and said, yeah, we screwed up, we made some bad calls, and we won't do it again? Yeah, right, that's never how it works. Instead, it's the same tired routine. Deny, deflect, dodge responsibility, and hope the people forget. And guess what? They usually do. But you know what? We won't. Subscribe as we stay on top of Signalgate and as other government corruption unfolds. And if you think these leaks are crazy and deceitful, check out our video on the dumbest things the government spent your money on, where we uncover things like spending $1.5 trillion on fighter jets that are constantly inoperable due to malfunctions, or a $223 million bridge to nowhere in Alaska.